This is the Michael Batson Show. Welcome back to the Michael Batson Show. We have a busy, very busy Wednesday morning for you all. Michael Batson Show is presented by and brought to you by One Stop Trev Shop. Let's get right to it. A busy day in sports. Every day is every day when you have your own podcast, and every day when you're just like a normal sports fan. We have Lakers and Nuggets. We have the first game of that series. We have to talk more about the NFL schedule. We'll talk a little bit about Matt Ryan, and it's going to be very fun. As thank you for everybody for listening to wherever you are, whoever you are. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. Hit that red button. Hit a like. Leave a comment. Whatever works best for you. Anything helps. As we take a look at what we will cover today, we'll talk about the Sixers, and more specifically Doc Rivers. They lost another Eastern Conference semifinals. That's their third straight. Doc Rivers now, he's 3 for 3. In 3 years as a head coach, he's lost all 3 Eastern Conference semifinals series that he have been to. People are blaming Harden, people are blaming Embiid, but should people be blaming Doc Rivers? I'll get to that. We'll also talk about Matt Ryan, how he is now joining the CBS crew to be a lead analyst on, I guess, some NFL football games coming up this fall. And then we'll lastly talk about the Lions and Chiefs. First game of the year will be slated on Thursday night at Arrowhead. If I told a Chiefs fan that they'd be playing first game of the 2023 NFL season, they might not believe me, and they probably will not believe me. So I'll give you more detail later on in the show about that. But thank you, everybody, for listening, and let's get to it. I covered the Celtics and the Sixers, a little bit about that game and Game 7 a few days ago, and I said what went wrong. Right? I said, first of all, Harden didn't play good, and Embiid didn't play good. And how does this keep happening to the Sixers? They lost 88-112 to the Celtics, Game 7 at the Garden. This is now 5 of 6 years and 3 straight years where they've lost in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And a lot of blame is being put on Harden. A lot of blame is being put on Embiid. Those guys combined only had 36 points and 8 assists. Usually those guys could combine for 50, 60 points when they're hot, and more than that if they're playing really, really good, like in Game 3 or 4 when Harden was putting up record numbers and stuff that he haven't done before. But people aren't really blaming Doc Rivers. And I've seen a few of the questions, will he be the coach next year? We know that he wants to keep being the coach, and he intends to. In a media session a few hours ago, he said he really wants to be the coach next year, and it's up to the front office to judge. And I'll say this, I'll say that in these days and in these times, we are so quick to blame the coach and the ref before the players. And I think players now are held to this superhuman standard. And with the money they're getting, and with the image, and with the likeness, and basically NIL that they're getting, it is so hard to really put full blame on them for doing something wrong. When 6 and 7-year-olds want to be like some guy, it's hard to really say, that guy did something wrong. So we put it on the refs, and the front office, and the coaches, and we're so hesitant to put it on the players, and this is an example. Doc Rivers should not be fired, or think about being fired, or thought about being fired for this loss. Because if you look, James Harden had 9 points, right? And in the NBA, you need 2 players, 1, maybe 2, and a few great guys on the bench to really be good. If your second best player in a Game 7 scored 9 points, that's a problem. The team was great when he scored 45, and people were like, oh, Harden's back. Nope, he's not. He had 7 points. And now you're going to say that it's Doc Rivers' fault for Harden playing terrible? How about your MVP caliber player? A guy that is a superstar. Top 3 player in the league. You could say Jokic and Giannis and this and that. but he's a top 3 player in the league no matter how you slice it. He only had 25 points. And that seemed good, but he didn't get to the line, he wasn't aggressive, and neither of those guys put up more than 25 points. Neither of them. Neither of them hit more than 1 3, neither of them went to the free throw line more than 3 times, and neither of them had confidence and really had aggressiveness when on the court. And I think this is a really good example of how we're so quick to blame the coaches and so quick to blame the refs, and we don't look at the 2-star players in the Sixers, right? And they just did not show up. They didn't. And I think an interesting take on this and how we could, I think, it could be a question if he could be fired, right? Because I'm not saying he's not going to be fired. I'm saying there's a chance. Because if you look at Monty Williams, the past Suns head coach who just got fired a week ago, 3 straight years, he lost in the Western Conference semifinal. 3 of the 4 years he was there. 2019 to 2020, first year, he did not qualify for the playoffs. But every year since then, he has not made it to the Western Conference Finals. Now, how does that happen? You could say bad coaching. You could. But the coach's job is to call good plays, to get them in the playoffs, and make your best players and make your stars have a chance to thrive. And if you look at the Suns roster, they had, throughout those years, they had Booker and Ayton and Chris Paul and Kevin Durant. Those guys are the ones that are playing. Monty Williams could say, okay, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this play. And Monty Williams could get them to the playoffs, and that's great. He did his job. But now, and then in the playoffs, it was time for Kevin Durant to step up, and he didn't. So that's why I think there's a chance that Doc Rivers could get fired, because Monty Williams had 3 straight years of losing in the Western Conference semifinal. And why am I blanking on his name? Doc Rivers had 3 straight years where he lost in the Eastern semi-conference final. You see a difference? It's hard to tell. They both had star players, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Kevin Durant. The other had James Harden and Joel Embiid. Devin Booker played great for Monty Williams, but Chris Paul was out. Kevin Durant put up average numbers. On the Sixers squad, well, James Harden had 9 points in a Game 7. Joel Embiid was in and out throughout the series, and they had to constantly rely on James Harden to get them a win, and for 2 of the games he did. We have to stop blaming coaches for players not stepping up. It would be a lot more of an easy job for a coach if Kevin Durant or Joel Embiid could play good in the finals and play good in the playoffs. But because they don't, and because you just can't say goodbye Durant, they have to throw someone off the bus. And it has to be the head coach, right? Monty Williams was thrown off. There. I'm not saying there's a real chance, and I don't think it will be the right choice if they do fire Doc Rivers or look to part ways with them. But they're always looking for a scapegoat in the NBA for their star players. That's why Kevin Durant didn't get any backlash when he had a bad series. That's why Chris Paul didn't get any backlash when he sat out in the series with just a little bit of an injury. And that's why, because of that, Monty Williams got fired. They needed a scapegoat. And for the NBA, unlike the NFL, getting into the playoffs isn't good enough, because 20 of the 30 teams make it. The coach's job is to get them in the playoffs. After that, it's the star player's job. And if they don't do good, if those star players don't do good, you're looking for the coach and front office and the refs sometimes to throw them under the bus. That's why I think there's a chance, but I just say no. I think Doc Rivers is a good coach. I think they failed to give help to Embiid. I don't think Harden is worth the money and a good number 2 for Embiid. And right now, you're just searching for better players to pair with Embiid. You need a real number 2. But I think they had the coach, they have the front office. In Philadelphia, it's just they choke in the playoffs. They choke in the playoffs. But it will be interesting to see after Monty Williams, a very similar situation. what happens with Doc Rivers. Let's get to one word. It is time for Michael's one word on the Michael Batson Show. Alright, one word. What is the question?
Matt Ryan joining CBS as an analyst is...
Alright, this
what?
word. And that's a new thing being placed in the Michael Batson Show. Matt Ryan retired for the moment, or is leaving the door open, but going to CBS. It's a move that is smart, and I'll tell you why. There is a crap ton of money right now in the TV business, and you don't have to be Tony Romo or Tom Brady to be getting it. Look at Craig Olsen. Last year, he made over $8 million to call 15 or 16 games and travel the country for about 2 months. There is a lot of money in the TV business, especially for analysts, and especially with an NFL job, and especially if you're a good quarterback. Tony Romo and Matt Ryan kind of are the same quarterback. They're good. They played for big teams, right? They had pretty good careers. But they have one thing in common. They're average enough where they could fit very easily in a why am I blanking right now? In a booth. And it's a pretty good gig if you ask me. You have to work about 2 months to 3 months. You get paid as much money as a backup quarterback would in the NFL, which Matt Ryan is basically heading towards that kind of area in your career where you're kind of a backup or a starter if someone gets hurt. And that's where he was with the Colts. So you're getting paid just as much as a backup quarterback. You only have to work about 2 months of the year. You get to travel the country, and again, you don't need to be in a football job, 12 months a year. You get a taste of it. Because these players playing football their whole life, they just don't want to retire and be done with it. Right? Matt Ryan just doesn't want to wake up one day and say, okay, I'm done. They want to slowly inch out of it. So it's also another way of slowly inching out of your career, right? Still having football in your life, still getting paid to do something with football, but just doing less of it. And it's a very smart move because he's going to make about the same money and as much probably money as if he was a backup quarterback on the Colts next year. And that's where he's heading to. And that's where he was treading to. Right? So it's a good move. A lot of players are doing it. And the best part is you don't need to be Tom Brady to get a job at CBS or Fox as an NFL analyst. You don't need to be Troy Aikman. You could be a really average quarterback who sticks around in the TV business, has a little bit of luck, was good in the NFL, but then made the most money and has the most fame as being a TV announcer. Look at Tony Romo. Other than Cowboys fans, most people now know him as a TV announcer. Not because he wasn't good, he was a very solid QB, and not because Matt Ryan isn't a good QB, he was a very good QB. But because he lost to that Super Bowl versus Tom Brady, he doesn't have a Super Bowl, he doesn't have MVP, and he's kind of the caliber player where, unless he wins a Super Bowl, he's kind of going to be known as a TV announcer if he's good at it, except for the areas where he played like the Falcons and like the Colts if you follow those teams. It's a really good move and you make a good amount of money for doing about 2.5 months of work. And you get to travel the country. It's a good move. Alright. Lions-Chiefs are scheduled for the first Thursday night game. First game in the NFL schedule. It's a Thursday night game. It's on NBC. Last year it was the Rams versus... why am I blanking? The Rams versus the Bills. This year it's going to be the Lions versus the Chiefs. And if you would have told a Lions fan 2 years ago that you were going to be flexed playing Arrowhead in the first game of the year, they would have probably lost their minds. Well, it's coming true. And I sat down with Free Press writer Dave Burkett a few weeks ago, call it a week and a half ago, and I asked him how much excitement is there with Detroit, right, with this town, in this stadium, in the city. And he said, it's been a while, and he laughed. It's been a while since there's been this much excitement. And I think that the Lions have a really good team. And I think their conference, looking around, it's pretty weak, and that means they can make a run. They have Fields and the Bears. Who knows if they could be good? They have Jordan Love and the Packers. Jordan Love's okay, but is the team ready to just be as good as Aaron Rodgers was with Green Bay? I don't think so. And then they have the Vikings. 9-8, 8-9, 8-9. They have Kirk Cousins. So right now you're looking at being the best team in your division. You also have, for the first time since Matthew Stafford left 2 years ago, a quarterback in Jared Goff that really you feel like could get something done. And I've been a firm believer in Jared Goff. I've said he's really good and he's underrated. And if he wasn't a top pick with the Rams, people would look at him a lot more differently because he's a very, very solid quarterback. And since his first year in the league, or first or second year in the league, I think this is the most momentum he had coming into a season. Partly because the fans love him. Partly, I think, but Brad Holmes loves him, the GM. Dave Burkett said that. They have a really good relationship. And the head coach likes him. Not only that, but he has receivers. The first 2 years he didn't. He had Marvin Jones and a few other guys. But now he has real targets. He also has a running game with David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. He has a running game. He has a defense, right, with Aiden Hutchinson and Jeff Rucoda. Maybe they're not an amazing defensive unit, but there's stars there. There's a lot to work with, and there's a lot of momentum. And I think for the Chiefs side, if they win a Super Bowl this year, I think they're one of the greatest dynasties in the NFL. Because now they've cemented themselves, and Mahomes has cemented themselves as through different eras of football. You had really the dominant Brady years in 18 and 19, and then Brady was getting old. And you had those years. So they've established their greatness throughout the years. And I think this would be another chance. Because now Brady is gone. Breeze is gone. Russell Wilson is older. And now it's solely Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and those young quarterbacks. There's no more old pocket passers. It's a new era. So if Mahomes could win one more Super Bowl and show that I'm really good. And not only could I perform 5 years ago in a different era of pocket passers and when Tom Brady was still there and Matthew Stafford was still dominant. No, not only that, but I could also be dominant when these runners as QBs are now here. And these mobile guys like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. To be good in two eras is a QB that we haven't seen many times before. We've seen it with Brady, we've seen it with Breeze, we've seen it with a select few of other quarterbacks. If he could do that and win one more Super Bowl, that would be 3 in 2 totally different eras, with a lot of different teams, without Tyreek Hill, without, all these guys, and especially his offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, left. This would be his most impressive Super Bowl, and I think this would put him inside one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play this game. I think it is. What did we cover today? Doc Rivers. Don't fire him. Blame the player for once. Blame the player. Embiid, Harden, they struggled. Yes, Harden had 45 points, but the two of them struggled throughout the series. For once, put the blame on the player. Not the ref, not the coach, the player. Second, it's a great move for Matt Ryan to go into TV broadcasting. There's a lot of money there, and it's a perfect gig for a guy that would be a backup next year and not slowly drain out his career. No, he gets to get more money, get less time watching football, and more time watching football. And then Lions and the Chiefs. They kick it off week 1. It's the flex matchup. First game of the year. Lions-Chiefs at Arrowhead. Lions, for the first time, they have hope. And Chiefs are looking, I think, to state their legacy and their dominance as one of the best dominance and, I guess, runs in football history if they could run the tables one more time. You've been listening to The Michael Batson Show, presented by One Stop Trev Shop. Be kind. Have a nice day.